Well, certainly a familiar name in the turf care industry joins me now. It's Richard Cumley. Richard, you're no longer with the brand that we've been associating you with God knows how many years. You're now with an outfit called ETA. Welcome to the show, and who are ETA, please?
ETA Green Power Ltd is a startup technology company that is specializing in the development of high density electric motors and controllers, specifically aimed at the battery operated sector, but our technology can also be used in the mains electricity sector as well.
So are you manufacturing the technology, or is it just providing the basis for other people to do that?
We are providing the basis for other people to do that. We have a licensing model that we will be using, or we are using, but we are basically a technology development organization. We are, I would say, I don't know the specific percentages, but let's say 85% of our employees are technologists, developers, specialists in their field of hardware, software, motor technology, that kind of thing.
We assume that one of the sectors you're focusing on is going to be turf care because of your involvement, but it's not exclusively looking at the turf care sector, is it?
No. The turf care sector is one of the first areas that we looked at, predominantly because some of us in the business have been in the turf care sector before. It's a huge sector, I think somewhat invisible to people who are not involved in it on a day-to-day basis. But financially and physically, it is, as you know, it's a huge sector, a great opportunity for us. Compared to the automotive industry, there are potentially fewer barriers to technical innovation and advancement. And for us, we've identified through market research that the sector is absolutely in a position where it needs the next generation of electric drive. That's not to say what we have today isn't adequate, and it's certainly, as we're well aware, there are hundreds of different types of electrically driven products on the market using battery power, and I guess in recent years that has literally exploded, hasn't it, in the consumer industry with vacuum cleaners, mowers, handheld garden equipment, all that kind of thing. So for us, a great initial opportunity, but also to showcase what we are capable of doing so that we can get other industries involved as we progress.
Looking at the current market in terms of the turf care sector, what do you think the state of the motor offerings is, and battery powered products in general? Where do you think they are in terms of the development cycle?
Manufacturers that are out there now with their electric offerings have done a fantastic job, and that must be reflected in the growth of the battery powered sector. There's no doubt, though, that with all types of product like this, it's an evolutionary process. And as we identify the advantages of battery powered products, not only from the green credential point of view and the reduction of carbon footprint point of view, but battery power product is so easy to use. The consumer likes it. It must be that case because of the huge explosion in sales in that sector. When I was in the turf care industry per se, I knew that was one of the fastest growing sectors in the sector, one of the fastest growing opportunities in the sector. Where are they today? I think we're at the point where not only is legislation, but there is a groundswell of opinion that I guess perhaps accelerated by what's happening in the automotive industry, but there's a groundswell of opinion that we need to go to electric drive. We need to migrate away from internal combustion engine drives where possible. And we've got to the point where we're at, but there are a number of providers of technology to the turf care sector. And I think some of the perfect opportunities for the turf care sector are simply too expensive for them. They're high density, they've got a very high magnetic content in the motors. They are they've been developed probably for more sophisticated sectors, and we believe that there's an opportunity to develop something that gives you that performance, but at a price that is affordable to a consumer type product.
So when we look at the drivers for change, obviously there's environment, legislation, but it comes down really to what the end users are wanting from the machinery. And if we're talking about the next step in development, which I think you are, of electric powered options, what are consumers asking that they now want for that next step?
In a nutshell, what we're being asked for is we want to go further. We want to be able to the electrically driven product, battery driven product, we want it to be able to last longer. We want to be able to run for a longer period of time.
Simply put, most of them are asking for more battery life, aren't they? But
the way it's generally expressed is I need more power, I need more range, I need to be able to run for longer, I need a bigger battery. That's sometimes a way that people articulate it. But in fact, you don't necessarily need a bigger battery. What we need to be able to do is utilize the energy that's available to us in a more efficient manner. And that's exactly the point that we are addressing at the moment.
the developments that are coming through your technology are predominantly around efficiency rather than increasing the power from a battery.
We are utilizing the power that is available from those batteries all the batteries that are available today. So we are not battery technologists. We're not attacking or addressing the battery technology per se, but there are plenty of other people doing that, and undoubtedly battery technology is improving over the years and will continue to do so, I'm very sure. I mean, there's some very exciting opportunities coming up, which I'm sure your readers will have read about in various different publications. So, but no, what we are doing is saying we're agnostic to where the energy comes from, really. Give us some voltage and we'll turn it into something that you can use.
I guess the analogy for that is you look at how petrol and diesel engines have developed. They become more efficient. You don't just put a bigger fuel tank on. In fact, you're putting smaller fuel tanks on now, aren't you? So
yeah, it's an evolutionary process, and I think the time is right to make ourselves more efficient. And in fact, there's recent European legislation being implemented that is demanding that in this particular case, I think that they are mains powered motors, but the legislation is demanding that electric motors become more efficient. Electric motors are not new. Obviously, they've been around forever, and I think there are over 400 different manufacturers of electric motors in the world, but they often serve particular niches. And I think perhaps vacuum cleaners may be a good example, where we've been using electrically driven vacuum cleaners for years quite happily. Concentration has been on how to make a different bag design, how to make them suck better, the brushes, all those kind of things. And now all of a sudden there's legislation that says, and by the way, the electric motor now needs to be more efficient than it was before. So if you think that just by making a bigger motor or putting a bigger motor on this device, which therefore means it's dragging more energy out of the mains power, no, that is not the answer. You've got to do better than that. So exactly the technology that we are developing.
you mentioned that it's going to be more efficient. You also said that there are cost advantages with these motors compared to, if we can call them, traditional electric motors almost now, yeah? What's so different about them?
We are reducing the use of what are commonly known as rare earth materials. So it's a little bit of a misnomer because as the name suggests, it is a relatively rare product, but most of it is pulled out of the mining of such such products that are in China and Australia. It's expensive. It's not very environmentally friendly. They are more difficult to recycle, some of these products, and the amount of material that you get, usable material that you get from, let's say, a ton of the raw material, is relatively inefficient. Whereas if we could use components or commodities that are more readily available, more easily recyclable, and that commodity is also available as a recycled product commonly today, copper and aluminium being probably the best examples of that, then we want to be able to use our technology is using more of those commonly available, more easily recyclable commodities.
So you're focusing on the turf care industry because of the background that you've got with yourself and some of your colleagues. How far into the process of this? It's a relatively new role for you, certainly compared to your years with the guys with Orange. Have you got trials out there? Is there anything in production yet?
We're just about to enter the what I would call the gamma stage, I guess, of our product, where we're building some volume of the motors, our initial motors, but we have run trials in the field, and we're continuing to do that. We've some more trials to run, but we've seen some significantly improved efficiencies with our own trials. Now we need to share that information with a wider audience. We have some partners engaged to help us do that, to help prove to themselves that that technology is real and not just something that we are promoting, shall I say. So I would expect to see some commitment to volume production early in the new year.
And I presume it's too early for you to tell us who you're working with, but is it a number of people, or are you looking for an exclusive partnership?
No, we have a number of opportunities. I think I would leave it at that.
So you're well down the line in terms of getting to a point where you're going to be in production and working with manufacturers. Where do you think battery stroke electrical power will be in the market over the next 5 to 10 years? Will it be the dominant source going forward, or will it always be one of a number of options?
That's a tricky question to give a specific answer to, perhaps, but in my opinion anyway, and in our opinion, in ETA's opinion, certainly whatever we do, we have to move away from the internal combustion engine, at least the internal combustion engine burning fossil fuels. Perhaps that's a safer thing to say, because internal combustion engines, of course, can run on hydrogen or something like that. But whether that's practicable for smaller internal combustion engines, I'm not well versed enough in that technology to be able to tell you the answer to that question. But you still, with an internal combustion engine, you still have to deal with noise, you still have to deal with vibration, whereas with an electrically driven product, those issues are addressed almost as a byproduct. So if the main driver is to reduce emissions, as a byproduct, emissions are also noise and vibration. They are emissions themselves. But is the primary reason that we're going to electric drive to reduce vibration and to reduce noise? Maybe not the primary reason, but most definitely a very strong secondary reason. And most people that migrate from an internal combustion engine product to an electric product, the things that they generally comment on quite early on are, oh, it's quiet, isn't it? Or there's not much vibration, is there? They're the things that their perception, touchy-feely, normally the first perception you use is vision, then possibly audible, and then maybe the next is when you touch it and run it. So all those senses come into play very quickly, and people that have used electrically driven products generally comment on that quite early on in their experience. Is it the only solution? I'm not sure, but I think it's going to be a very large part of the solution, because the technology is available. Everybody's investing massively in battery power. A lot of manufacturers are now investing in their own capability there, as in the automotive industry as well. So yes, I think it's going to be a major contributor to motive power one way or another.
The options that you have are scalable, you've said, in terms of the machinery they can work on. What's the range of that scale?
Well, today we're making something that's circa 5.5 to 7.5 kilowatt motor, something that's probably about the size of a coffee cup, a coffee mug. there's no reason why we couldn't scale that technology up to something that would be able to drive a piece of construction equipment, or an agricultural tractor. It's almost infinitesimal. We may need to use different thermal management processes. So at the moment, our motor is air cooled. Quite often when you get up to much larger motors, then you have to manage the thermal capabilities of the motor, which may include liquid cool technology. But yes, fundamentally, the topology, as it's known, of the motor that we have developed is scalable, I think, almost infinitesimally.
So you can go from a handheld device like a brush cutter, perhaps, all the way through to something that's going to, take a trail mower or a mounted mower in terms of a tractor.
Yeah, or a piece of agricultural, a large agricultural tractor, construction equipment, 360-degree diggers, bulldozers, that kind of thing, mining equipment. Quite a number of those have already gone to electric drives, in fact.
This is a fascinating subject and one that's been kind of dominating conversations around the environmental side and the sustainability side of the industry. Is it a brand new startup and focusing completely on turf care today, or are you already having conversations elsewhere?
We are exploring other sectors without doubt. That there are opportunities for us in construction industry, in marine, as I mentioned, I think HVAC, heating and air conditioning. Numerous opportunities for us. But the first field trials that we have conducted have been turf care related, yes.
And when do you think we'll see some results from that and something we can report on?
I would hope that by the end of this year or early next year, we will be able to show you a finished product. I mean, we can show a finished product now, indicative of what we can do. Hopefully we will have some partners on board. I would hope by the end of this year, beginning of next year. Perhaps how that is articulated to the outside world will be driven somewhat by the partners that we choose. When people are working on something that's shall I say, slightly confidential at the moment, then it's a matter of a joint decision as to when that becomes public.
And I would assume that you're not just pursuing conversations with companies that maybe need to switch to electric power from traditional power, but some of those that are already providing predominantly electric products should be looking at this as well, yeah?
Yes, indeed. Both are good opportunities for us. Those that have already got electric products, generally speaking, are they've got an enormous amount of feedback from their customers. They're successfully selling their products. There's nothing wrong with their products, but they usually articulate to us the fact that they need to go to that next level. They need, just because you've developed something that's successfully selling today, what are you going to do next? How are you going to take your product forward? How are you going to solidify your market presence? You probably won't be able to continue selling what you're selling today ad infinitum. So yes, the answer to your question is there are opportunities for us in those that are already engaged in battery power products, but also those that have yet to engage in it. Both are great opportunities for us. And indeed, with the existing electric drive products, very often, and certainly the products that we've chosen to start with, our technology fits into the envelope that is already there. So if a manufacturer's designed something and he's spent money on tooling the covers and how it all fits onto their piece of equipment, it's not our product doesn't look radically different. We're not trying to get a square peg into a round hole. If the hole is currently round, then our product will fit in there nicely. And we've certainly proven that to ourselves quite easily. And our power density is such that quite often we can make our smaller product will fit into the space that currently is occupied by something much larger.
It's always fascinating to catch up with you, even more so this time round because we've got something genuinely new as part of the power revolution that we're looking at in our next issue of Turf Business. Thanks for your time. We're going to follow this one and keep an eye on it because I think this one certainly looks like it's going to be quite an exciting time for you and perhaps the industry over the next few months, coming years.
Definitely evolving and evolving quite fast. Legislation is pushing us, the market is pushing us, and the shareholders of ETA are pushing us as well.
Thanks again, Richard.
Thank you, Martin.